Listen, I refuse to hold this in for another minute. I don't care who's watching, who's clipping this, who's about to run to the comments section to fight me. Beyonce is the greatest live performer walking this planet. And after what happened on that Chicago stage, the argument is officially closed. Closed, buried, cemented, signed, sealed, and shipped to the archives. I don't want to hear another debate. I don't want to see another list. And I definitely don't want to hear another think piece from a blogger who's never sat through a full Beyonce show in their life. Because what Beyonce did on that Cowboy Carter stage this week wasn't a concert. It was a legal filing. It was a receipt. It was a coronation on wheels. It was a woman collecting a throne she already owned and daring anybody in the building to try and take it from her. And the second I saw the footage roll across my timeline, I said out loud to my empty living room, the debate is dead. Somebody call the coroner. Now before the girlies get in the comments and tell me I'm reaching, let me set the record straight because I don't play with the greats and I do not disrespect the pantheon. I love Tina Turner. Tina is my patron saint of rock and roll violence, the original blueprint for a woman who could hold an arena in her hand like a lit match. I love Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is the ceiling and the sky and the whole atmosphere above the ceiling. I love Whitney Houston. Whitney is the voice, and I will fight anybody who tries to relitigate that fact in my presence. I love Janet Jackson. I love Prince. I love Diana Ross. I love the whole pantheon of black excellence that built the stage Beyonce is standing on tonight. So don't come at me sideways and tell me I don't know the lineage. I know the lineage. I built my whole vinyl collection off the lineage. I have physical copies of albums younger fans have never even heard of. But loving the lineage is exactly why I can say what I'm about to say next. Beyonce is the only one, hear me clearly, who beats every single one of them in every single category all at once. And I'll prove it. I'll prove it right now, on camera, with receipts stacked so high the comment section is going to crash. Because here's the rubric. And once I lay this rubric down for y'all, you cannot unsee it. You cannot unhear it. You are going to walk around the rest of your week measuring every performer you love against this same 8-column scoreboard. And half of your favorites are not going to survive the audit. Vocals, stage presence, choreography, breath control, visual curation, storytelling, stamina, longevity, and the bonus column that everybody wants to skip, the freakish, borderline supernatural ability to move like a 27-year-old when you're staring down 45. That is the checklist. That is the exam. That is the whole test. And Beyonce is the only artist alive who scores a perfect 10 across the entire card without leaving a single row blank. Chicago was the proof of concept. Chicago was the closing argument. When Beyonce walked out on that Cowboy Carter stage this weekend, before she opened her mouth, before the band even hit the downbeat, before the pyro cued, I already knew what kind of night we were about to have. Because the second I saw those heels, the second I saw the boots, the fringe, the silhouette, the tailoring, the sheer cinematic authority radiating off that entrance, I said out loud, to nobody in particular, oh, Beyonce came here to commit a crime. That is the only way to describe it. Beyonce did not travel to Chicago to perform. Beyonce traveled to Chicago to detonate the stage, and everybody in Soldier Field was collateral damage. Every phone in the stadium. Every reviewer in the press pit. Every rival artist watching the live stream from their tour bus. Every single one of them got hit. Let me get into this look for a second because we cannot skip the visual layer, and if you've been rocking with me for a while, you know I do not rush the aesthetics. Beyonce was styled head to toe in a custom Western tailoring package that read like Cadillac Records and Reasonable Doubt had a baby in a Nashville dressing room, with a splash of birthday-era swagger sprinkled over the top for good measure. The boots were Italian, hand-tooled, unrepeatable. The hardware was couture. The palette, cream, chrome, and deep saddle, was pulled straight out of the visual grammar Beyonce has been quietly building since the déjà vu era of 2006. And listen, the fact that Beyonce is still curating her wardrobe like every single frame is going to be studied in a Yale seminar 20 years from now, that alone tells you the level of intentionality we are dealing with. Beyonce isn't dressing for the night. Beyonce isn't dressing for the tour. Beyonce is dressing for the archive, for history, for the museum retrospective that is definitely coming. And once you see it through that lens, you cannot unsee the discipline. Now here's where it gets criminal. And I want the babies to lock in for this part because this is the section that flips even the skeptics. Because we can talk about the outfit all day. We can talk about the choreography all week. We can talk about the visuals until the sun sets and rises again. But the thing that separates Beyonce from every other performer of her generation, the thing that separates Beyonce from every performer of any generation, is what happens the very second Beyonce opens her mouth. The vocal, the tone, the brightness, the atmospheric shift you feel in your chest before the first note finishes. Am I allowed to say it? Am I allowed to just say it out loud with my whole chest? Beyonce sounds better at 40-something than she sounded at 25. And I know, half of y'all just rolled your eyes at your screen. Roll them back. Because I have receipts. I have footage. I have 20 years of tape. Pull up any live vocal Beyonce has delivered in 2026. Anyone you want. Pick the 16 Carriages performance. Pick the American Requiem opening. Pick the 2 Most Wanted duet slot. Pick Daughter. Pick Tyrant. It does not matter which one you pick. Now pull up the equivalent vocal from 2006, the Deja Vu performance, the birthday tour footage, the Fashion Rocks appearance, whatever your favorite is. Play them back to back. Tell me Beyonce's tone hasn't gained weight without losing brightness. Tell me the runs aren't cleaner. Tell me the vibrato isn't more controlled. Tell me the breath support isn't a different animal entirely. You cannot tell me that. Because it isn't true. Beyonce is one of maybe 3 vocalists in modern pop history whose voice has actually improved with time instead of degrading. And if you cannot hear the difference, that is a listening problem. That is not a Beyonce problem. And let me talk about that growl, because we have to talk about the growl. Y'all know the growl I'm talking about. That signature Beyonce chest voice growl that shows up like clockwork at the peak of every song. The one that makes the entire arena scream before Beyonce has even finished the phrase. That growl is not a vocal tick. That growl is a weapon. That growl has ended relationships. That growl has ended careers. That growl has been quietly authoring the modern R&B vocal playbook for 2 decades, and every young singer trying to emulate it is arriving to the party 20 years late with the wrong shoes on. You can hear Beyonce's growl in every rising R&B star from the last 10 years. That is how deep the influence runs. Now let me detour for a second because I keep hearing this discourse floating around online that Beyonce is just a good dancer with a good voice. And I need to correct the record because that framing is lazy, it's reductive, and it's specifically designed to shrink her. Beyonce is not a good dancer. Beyonce is a choreographer disguised as a dancer. Beyonce constructs choreography that has to be reverse-engineered by professional dancers who are half her age and twice as rested. The Cowboy Carter tour choreography, every mark, every 8 count, every hair flip, every stomp, every camera-ready pose, is Beyonce's fingerprint. And Beyonce is executing all of it while singing live, while smiling, while working the camera, while thinking 3 songs ahead, while managing an 80-piece production, while making direct eye contact with a fan in row 47 and making that fan feel personally seen. Do you understand the CPU load Beyonce is running in real time on that stage? Do you understand how few humans on Earth can hold that many plates spinning at once? Do you understand that Beyonce is essentially doing the work of 5 performers simultaneously and doing all 5 jobs at the highest level in the industry on the same night, in the same 2-hour window, every single show, for months on end? And this is the part where I want to pause because I know somebody in the comments is already loading up the "but Michael did it first" defense. And you're right. Michael did do it first. I will never take that away from Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is the reason the modern pop stage even exists as a concept. But Michael Jackson also did not have to compete with social media, live streaming, phone cameras, algorithmic dissection, TikTok clipping, YouTube reactors, hot take Twitter, and 100,000 fans in a single arena filming every millisecond of the show in 4K resolution. Beyonce is performing under a level of scrutiny that Michael Jackson never had to survive, and Beyonce is somehow still flawless under that scrutiny. That is a different sport. That is a different weight class. That is a completely different level of pressure that would break most human beings in half. And Beyonce is out there gliding through it in custom Italian boots without breaking a sweat or a note. Let me lock in on the age argument because this is the one that shuts every conversation down, and I need y'all to hear me. Show me any of the greats in their mid-40s delivering the level of physical, vocal, and emotional labor Beyonce is delivering on this Cowboy Carter run. Show me Whitney at 44. Show me Michael at 44. Show me Prince at 44. Show me Diana at 44. Show me anybody at 44. Now show me Beyonce at 44. There is no comparison. It's not disrespectful. It's just accurate. Janet Jackson is the only living peer who even enters the conversation with a whisper of a case. And Janet herself would tell you what Beyonce is doing right now is unprecedented in the entire recorded history of arena performance. That is not opinion. That is documented. That is on tape. That is measurable. Now I have to pivot because we cannot get through this conversation without addressing what happened the same weekend, on the same coast, in a very different venue, with a very different outcome. And y'all know exactly who I am about to talk about. I love Rihanna. I want that on the record before we start. I love Rihanna. I have loved Rihanna since Pon de Replay. I own every Rihanna album on vinyl, and I will still be spinning Anti and Loud and Rated R when I am 60 years old and rocking on a porch somewhere. But I have to tell y'all what I saw with my own two eyes, because the internet is trying to gaslight all of us into pretending it did not happen, and I refuse to participate in the cover-up. Rihanna returned to a live stage this weekend after nearly a decade away from touring in America, and let's do the sandwich method because I actually adore this woman with my whole heart. Rihanna looked absolutely stunning. The fashion was immaculate. The hair, after all that finny hair discourse we were living through, was actually growing in beautifully and healthy. Rihanna looked like a woman who has been vacationing on yachts, raising billionaire toddlers, eating incredible food, and running a beauty empire the size of a small country, which Rihanna is doing, which Rihanna has earned. And it was genuinely joyful to see Rihanna on a stage again, smiling, waving at the crowd, doing that little signature Bajan two-step that only Rihanna can pull off with that specific hip movement. So that is the bread of the sandwich. That is the top slice. That is the compliment. Now let me get to the meat. Am I allowed to say it? Am I allowed to just say the thing everybody at home is thinking? Rihanna was not ready. Rihanna was not vocally, physically, technically, or logistically prepared for that stage. And I do not mean that as a drag. I mean that as a clinical diagnosis. Because what we watched on that Yankee Stadium performance was a woman whose instrument has simply not been maintained. The vocal cords are not muscles that survive on their own. You have to train them. You have to warm them up. You have to sing every week, every day, every year, or the machine rusts and the pipes clog. And Rihanna's machine has been sitting in the garage for a decade, while Beyonce's machine has been running the Indianapolis 500 every night in a different city. That is the gap. That is the whole story. The stumble. Y'all saw the stumble. Rihanna was tiptoeing across that stage like the floor was made of glass, and I sat there watching it live thinking, how many glasses of Ace of Spades happened backstage before this walkout? Because there is no other rational explanation. Rihanna looked like she wandered onto the stage from a cousin's wedding reception in the middle of the cha-cha slide. Rihanna looked like a woman doing karaoke of her own greatest hits at a birthday party in the Hamptons. And I hate to say it, but I have to say it out loud. The girlies picked the right decoder to tell them the truth this weekend. That was not a Rihanna performance. That was a Rihanna cosplay. That was a wax figure edition. And Rihanna herself was probably in the back watching the whole thing on a monitor, wondering when her stunt double was going to give her the mic back and let her go home. And let's talk about that mic. Because I have a controversial opinion, and I am going to say it, and I will accept the consequences. Some artists do not need a live mic. Some artists need to lean into the lip sync. A full RuPaul's Drag Race lip sync for your life energy. Because the audience is there for the vibe, the fashion, the fantasy, and the memory of the recorded version. Rihanna, at this stage in her career, is a fantasy artist. Rihanna is not on stage to deliver a Whitney tier vocal recital. Rihanna is on stage to be Rihanna, the icon, the mogul, the Bajan queen, the woman who single-handedly reinvented pop radio from 2007 through 2016. So turn the backing track up. Cut the live mic. Let Rihanna serve fashion, personality, presence, and pure star power. That is the ecosystem where Rihanna wins every night of the week. The Yankee Stadium exposed vocal experiment is simply not the ecosystem where Rihanna wins. Now some of y'all are going to say Rihanna could never sing at all, and I have to push back on that framing too, because that framing is wrong and it's disrespectful. Rihanna can sing. Rihanna has never floored me the way Whitney floors me, the way Mariah floors me, the way Brandy floors me, the way Jasmine Sullivan floors me, the way Beyonce floors me. But Rihanna has a specific vocal color, a specific tonal signature, a specific husky alto texture that nobody else on earth can replicate. Pull up Diamonds at the 2016 Global Citizen Festival. Pull up Stay at any award show performance from her prime. Pull up her Love on the Brain live cuts. Rihanna can absolutely deliver when Rihanna decides to deliver. The problem is Rihanna has stopped deciding to deliver. And when you stop deciding, the instrument simply stops obeying the command. So here is the reckoning. Here is the piece I want the algorithm to serve to every corner of Black pop culture Twitter and every group chat that has been debating this all weekend. Beyonce and Rihanna are not in the same lane. They never were. Beyonce is the athlete. Rihanna is the mogul. Beyonce is the marathoner. Rihanna is the sprinter who retired at the peak of her career to build a beauty empire. And that is fine. That is actually beautiful. But let's stop pretending the comparison is one-to-one, because it never was and it never will be. Rihanna made her billion. Beyonce is still making history. Those are two different games with two different scoreboards, and both women are winning their respective games in spectacular fashion. But if we are going to have the specific conversation about live performance, the specific, narrow, high-stakes conversation about who is the greatest to ever pick up a mic and command an arena, Rihanna is not even on the shortlist. Beyonce is the shortlist. Let me sit with that for a second because I know some of y'all just clutched your pearls so hard you left fingerprints. Beyonce is the shortlist, not the top of the shortlist, not a leading contender on the shortlist. Beyonce is the shortlist, the entire shortlist, all by herself. Because when you run the 8-column scoreboard we laid out earlier, vocals, stage presence, choreography, breath control, visual curation, storytelling, stamina, longevity, Beyonce is the only living performer scoring above 9 in every single column simultaneously. Whitney had the vocal ceiling, but not the choreography. Michael had the choreography and stage presence ceiling, but couldn't do the 20-year longevity in the same physical shape. Tina had the ferocity, but not the visual curation of a modern touring production. Janet has the choreography and the longevity, but her vocal ceiling was never Whitney level. Prince had the musicianship, but he wasn't dancing choreography while playing the guitar solo while singing live at 44. Every single icon has a hole somewhere in the scoreboard. Beyonce does not have a hole in the scoreboard. That is the argument. That is the whole argument. That is the case. Close the file. And here is where I want to plant something for y'all to marinate on before you close this video and go start World War III in the group chat with your cousin who thinks otherwise. Beyonce is not done. That is what people keep missing in this discourse. We are watching Beyonce at somewhere between year 25 and year 30 of her career, and Beyonce is still ascending. Beyonce is still finding new gears. Beyonce is still adding weight to the vocal without losing brightness. Beyonce is still adding new choreographic vocabulary. Beyonce is still rebuilding her aesthetic from scratch every single album cycle. Renaissance was a reinvention. Cowboy Carter was a reinvention. Whatever Act 3 is going to be, and mark my words, Act 3 is coming, will be another reinvention, another cultural earthquake, another paradigm reset. There is no ceiling on this woman. There is only sky. And I am starting to believe there is not even a sky. And if you are one of the people who is going to type, but I don't even like Beyonce's music in the comments, I want you to understand something crucial. This conversation is not about whether you personally like Beyonce's music. Taste is taste. Preference is preference. You are absolutely allowed to not connect with the catalog. What you are not allowed to do, what the actual evidence does not permit you to do, is pretend Beyonce is not the greatest live performer of the modern era. Those are two entirely different arguments. Do not conflate them. Do not walk into my comments section pretending your personal Spotify playlist is a substitute for a peer-reviewed evaluation of stagecraft, technique, and endurance. Now let me give y'all the piece I have been holding all video, because I promised at the beginning that this Chicago show was going to close the conversation, and I meant every word of it. Beyonce's Chicago set list this weekend included a stretch of songs from Birthday, 20 years after that album originally dropped, and Beyonce performed those vocals like the album released last Tuesday afternoon. 20 years later, same vocal register, same breath support, same brightness, same growl, same fire. The same woman who recorded Ring the Alarm and Suga Mama and Get Me Bodied in 2006 is out here delivering the same performance in 2026 with an extra decade of technical polish stacked on top. Nobody in modern pop history has that kind of vocal preservation across 2 full decades. Nobody. And with the 20th anniversary of birthday approaching, I will say what a lot of us are already whispering in the group chats. Beyonce is in the studio right now, re-recording the masters. Taylor Swift laid the playbook. Beyonce is going to run the playbook and rewrite it in the process. And when those re-recordings drop, the culture is going to shift again, because that is what Beyonce does. Beyonce does not participate in the culture. Beyonce writes the culture. So here is where I leave y'all tonight. Beyonce in Chicago was not a concert. Beyonce in Chicago was a closing argument delivered under a spotlight. And the jury, the millions of fans watching, filming, screaming, and clipping every second of that show on every platform simultaneously, has already returned the verdict. The greatest live performer of all time is standing on the Cowboy Carter stage, in custom Italian boots, singing better at 44 than she sang at 24, and the rest of the industry is going to have to figure out how to live in the world Beyonce is building around them, whether they like it or not. Rihanna, I still love you. I still want the album. I still want the next Fenty drop. I still want the Super Bowl tier comeback we all know is possible if you go back into serious vocal training and rebuild the instrument from the ground up. But this weekend was not the moment. This weekend belonged to Beyonce. This weekend is going in the history books with Beyonce's name written on top.